हरिवो।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देह श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवासा श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगणरघुनाथान्वितं सजीवं सावधूतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तृप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय श्री प्रभुपाद।
नमः विष्णुपदाय।
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे।
हरिवो. Okay, so today we read the chapter 23, and it's delivering the wives of the Brahmanas who perform sacrifices. Okay, Hare Krishna. The morning passed, and the cowherd boys were very hungry because they had not eaten breakfast. They immediately approached Krishna and Balaram and said, Dear Krishna and Balaram, you are both all-powerful. You can kill many, many demons, but today we are much afflicted with hunger, and this is disturbing us. Please arrange for something that will mitigate our hunger. Requested in this way by their friends Lord Krishna and Balaram immediately showed compassion on certain wives of Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices. These wives were great devotees of the Lord, and Krishna took this opportunity to bless them. He said, My dear friends, please go to the house of the Brahmanas nearby. They are now engaged in performing Vedic sacrifices known as Agni Rasa, for they desire elevation to heavenly planets. All of you, please go to them. Then Lord Krishna warned his friends, These Brahmanas are not Vaishnavas. They cannot even chant our names, Krishna and Balaram. They are very busy in chanting the Vedic hymns, although the purpose of Vedic knowledge is to find me. But because they are not attracted by the names of Krishna and Balaram, you had better not ask them for anything in my name. Better ask for some charity in the name of Balaram. Charity is generally given to high-class Brahmanas, but Krishna and Balaram did not appear in a Brahmana family. Balaram was known as the son of Vasudeva, a Kshatriya, and Krishna was known in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj, who was a Vaishya. Neither belonged to the Brahmana community. Therefore, Krishna considered that the Brahmanas engaged in performing sacrifices might not be induced to give charity to a Kshatriya and Vaishya. But at last, if you utter the name of Balaram, they may prefer to give in charity to a Kshatriya rather than to me, because I'm only a Vaishya. Hare Krishna. Any Prabhu can continue.
I did not know that. I thought like Krishna was like born in a Kshatriya family. Okay. Being thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the boys went to the Brahmanas and began to ask for some charity. They approached them with folded hands and fell down on the ground to offer respects. "O earthly gods, kindly hear us. We're ordered by Lord Krishna and Balarama. We hope you know them both very well, and we wish you all good fortune. Krishna and Balarama are tending cows nearby, and we have accompanied them. We have come to ask for some food from you. You're all brahmanas, and you and knowers of religious principles. And if you think that you should give us charity, then give us some food, and we shall all eat along with Krishna and Balarama. You're you're the most respectable brahmana within the human society, and you are expected to know all the principles of religious procedure. Although the boys were village boys and were not expected to be learned in all Vedic principles of the religious ritual, they hinted that because of their association with Krishna and Balarama, they knew all the principles. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balarama, asked for food, the boys would immediately deliver it without hesitation, because it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that one should perform yajna, sacrifices, only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. The voice continues. Lord Vishnu as Krishna and Balarama is standing waiting, and you should immediately deliver whatever food you have in stock. They explain to the Brahmanas how foodstuff are to be accepted. Generally, the Vaishnavas, or pure devotees of the Lord, do not take part in ordinary sacrificial performances, but they know very well the ceremonies called Diksha Pasus, Susamta, Sutramnya. One is permitted to take food after the procedure of Diksha and before the animal sacrificial ceremony, and the Sutramani, or ceremony in which liquors are also offered. The boy said, "We can take our food. We can take your food at the present stage of the ceremony. For now, it will not be prohibitory. So you can deliver us the food stuff." Although the companions of Lord Krishna and Balarama were simple cowherd boys, they were in a position to dedicate. Yeah, they're in a position to dictate even to the high-class brahmanas engaged in the Vedic rituals of sacrifice. But some smarta, yeah, smarta brahmanas who were simply superficial-minded could not understand the dictation of the transcendental devotees of the Lord. They could not even appreciate the begging of the Supreme Lord, Krishna and Balarama. Although they heard all the arguments on the behalf of Krishna and Balarama, they did not care for them, and they refused to speak to the boys despite being highly elevated in the knowledge of Vedic sacrificial rites. And all such non-devotees, brahmanas, although they think themselves as very highly elevated, are ignorant, foolish persons. All their activities are useless because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained in Bhagavad Gita. To understand Krishna, in spite of their advancement in the Vedic knowledge and rituals, they do not understand Krishna. Therefore, their knowledge of the Vedas is superficial. Lord Chaitanya therefore gave his valuable opinion that a person does not have to be born in the Brahmana family. If he knows Krishna or the science of Krishna consciousness, he is more than a Brahmana, and he is quite fit to become a spiritual master. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you are not.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can you read Bhagaram Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Haribo.
There are various details to be observed in the performance of sacrifices, and they are known collectively as desa. Desa. They are as follow. Kala means the time. Prathal. Prathal dravya. Pratha. Pratha. Is it cut, Prabhu? Prathak. Prathak. Dravya. The different details paraphernalia, mantras, hymns, tantra, scriptural evidence, Agni, fire, Ritwij, learned performers of the sacrifices, Devata, the demigods, Vaj, Vajmana, Vajmana, the performer of the sacrifices, Kratu, the sacrifice itself, the dharma, the procedure, all these are for the satisfying Krishna. It is confirmed that he is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices because he is directly the supreme personality of Godhead and the supreme absolute truth beyond the conception, the speculation of the supreme speculation of the material senses. He is present just like an ordinary human boy. But for the person who identify themselves with his body, it is very difficult to understand him. The Brahmanas were very interested in the comfort of this material body and in elevation to the higher planetary residences called Swargavasa. They were therefore complete completely unable to understand the position of Krishna. When the boys saw that Brahmanas would not speak to them, they became very disappointed. Then they returned to Lord Krishna and Balarama and explained everything that had happened. After hearing their statement, the Supreme Personality began to smile. He told them that they should not be sorry for being refused by the Brahmanas because that is the way of begging. We convinced them that while one is engaged in collecting or begging, one should not think that he will be successful everywhere. Wow. He may be unsuccessful in some places, but that should not be cause for disappointment. Lord Krishna then asked all the boys to go again and again, but this time to wives of those Brahmanas engaged in sacrifices. He also informed them that these wives were great devotees. They are always absorbed in thinking of us. Go there and ask for some food in my name and then in and the name of Balaram. And I am sure that they will deliver you as much food as you desire. Carrying out Krishna's order, the boys immediately went to the wives of the Brahmanas. They found the wives sitting inside their house. They were very beautifully decorated with ornaments. After offering them all respectful obeisance, the boys said, "Dear mothers, please accept our humble obeisance and hear our statement. May we inform you that Lord Krishna and Balaram are nearby. They have come here with the cows, and you may know also that we have come here under their instruction. All of us are very hungry. Therefore we have come to you for some food. Please give us something to eat for Krishna, Balarama, and ourselves." Immediately upon hearing this, the wives of Brahmanas become anxious for Krishna and Balarama. These reactions were spontaneous. They were they did not have to be convinced of the importance of Krishna and Balarama. Immediately upon hearing their name, they become very anxious to see them. Being advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, they were performing the greatest form of the mystic meditation. All the wives then become very vigilantly engaged in filling the different pots with the nice food stuff. Due to the performance of the sacrifice, the various food was very palatable. After collecting the feast, they prepare to go to Krishna, their most lovable object, exactly in the way river flow to the sea. For a long time, the wives had been anxious to Krishna. However, when they were preparing to leave home to go to see him, their husband, father, sons, and relative asked them not to go. But wives did not comply. When a devotee is called by the attraction of Krishna, he does not care for bodily ties. The woman entered the forest on the bank of the Yamuna, which was verdant and vegetation of newly grown vines and flowers. Within that forest, they saw Krishna and Balaram engaged in tending the cows, along with their very affectionate boyfriends. The Brahmana's wife saw Krishna putting on a garments glittering like gold. He wore a nice garland of forest flower and a peacock feather on his head. He saw also painted with the minerals found in the Vrindavan. Minerals found in Vrindavan. Okay. He looked exactly like a dancing actor on the thea- theatrical stage. They saw him keeping one hand on the shoulder of his friend, and in the other hand he was holding a lotus flower. His ears were decorated with lilies. He wore marks of tilaka and he was smiling charmingly. With their very eyes, the wives of Brahmana saw the supreme personality of Godhead, of whom they had heard so much, who, who was so dear to them, and in whom their minds were always absorbed. Now they saw him eye to eye and face to face. Krishna entered within their heart through their eyes. They began to embrace Krishna to their heart content, and the distress of separation was mitigated immediately. They were just like great sages who, by their advancement of knowledge, merge into the existence of the Supreme. As the supreme super soul living in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna could understand their mind. They had come to they had come to him dissipate all the protest of their relatives, father, husband, brother, and all the duties of household affair. They came just to see him who was their life and soul. They were actually following Krishna's instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. One should surrender to him, giving up all varieties of occupational and religious duties. The wives of Brahmanas actually carried out the instruction of Bhagavad Gita in total. He therefore began to speak to them, smiling very magnificently. It should be noted in this connection that when Krishna entered into the wives' heart, and when they embraced him and felt the transcendental bliss of being merged with him, the Supreme Lord Krishna did not lose his identity, nor did the individual wives lose their. The individuality of the both the Lord and the wives remained. Yet they felt oneness in existence. When a lover submits to his lover without any pains of the personal consideration, that is called oneness. Lord Chaitanya has taught us this feeling of oneness in his Shiksashtra. Krishna may act freely, doing whatever he likes, but the devotee should always be in oneness or in agreement with his desire. The oneness was exhibited by the wives of the Brahmanas in their love for Krishna. The Krishna welcomed them with the following words: My dear wives of the Brahmanas, you are all very fortunate and welcomed here. Please let me know what I can do for you. Your You are coming here neglecting all the restriction and hindrance of the relatives, father, brothers, and husband in order to see me is completely befitting. One who does this actually know his self-interest, because remembering rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restriction is actually auspicious for the living entities. Lord Krishna had confirmed that the highest perfection stage of the conditional soul is surrender unto him. One must give up all the responsibilities. This complete surrender unto the supreme personality of Godhead is the most auspicious path for the conditional soul, because the supreme Lord is supreme object of love. Everyone is loving Krishna ultimately, but realization is according to the advancement of his knowledge. One comes to the understand that his self is spirit soul, and the spirit soul is nothing but a part and parcel of Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is ultimate goal of love, and thus one should surrender unto him. This surrender is considered auspicious for the conditioned soul. Our life our life, property, home, wives, children, house, country, society, and all paraphernalia which are very dear to us are expansion of the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the central object of love, because he give us all bliss, expanding himself in so many ways according to our different situation, namely bodily, mental, or spiritual. My dear wives of the Brahmanas, Krishna said, you can now return to your home, engage yourself in sacrificial activities, and be engaged in the service of your husband and household affair, so that your husband will be pleased with you, and the sacrifice which they have begun will be properly executed. After all, your husband are householder, and without your help, how can they execute their prescribed duties? The wives of Brahmanas replied, dear Lord, this sort of instruction does not befit you. Your eternal promise is that you will always protect your devotees, and now you must fulfill this promise. Anyone who comes and surrender unto you never goes back to the conditional life of the material existence. We expect that you will where it is we expect that you will now fulfill your promise. We have surrendered unto your lotus feet, which are covered by the tulsi leaf, so we have no more desire to return to the company of our so-called relatives, friends, and society. Give up the shelter of your lotus feet, and what shall we do? Returning home? Our husband, brothers, father, son, mother, and our friends do not expect to see us, because we have already left them all. Therefore, we have no shelter to return to. Please, therefore, do not ask to return home, but arrange for our stay under your lotus feet, so that we can eternally live under your protection. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, my dear wives, rest assured that your husband will not neglect you on your return, nor will your brothers, sons, or fathers uh, refuse to accept you, because you are my pure devotee. Not only your relatives, but also people in general, as well as the demigods, will be satisfied with you. Krishna is situated as the super soul in everyone's heart. So, if someone become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, he immediately becomes pleasing to everyone. The pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone. A sane person cannot be enemy of the pure devotee. Transcendental love for me does not depend upon bodily conception. Krishna said further, but anyone whose mind is always absorbed in me will surely very soon come to me for my eternal association. After being instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the wise again return home to their respective husbands, pleased to see their wives come back Back home, the Brahmanas executed the performance of sacrifices by sitting together, as it is enjoined in the Shastras. According to Vedic principle, religious ritual must be executed by the husband and wife together. When the Brahmana's wife returned, the sacrifice was duly and nicely executed. One of the Brahmana's wife, however, who was forcibly checked from going to see Krishna, began to remember him as she heard of his bodily feature, being completely absorbed in his thought. Oh. She gave up her material body conditioned by the law of nature. Sri Govinda, the ever joyful personality of Godhead, revealed his transcendental pastime, appearing just like an ordinary human being, and, enjo- and enjoyed the food offered by the wives of Brahmanas. In this way, he attracted common person to Krishna consciousness. He attracted to his word and beauty all the cows, cowherd boy, and damsels in Vrindavan. After the return of their wives, the Brahmanas engaged in the performance of sacrifice began to regret their sinful activities in refusing food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They could finally understand their mistake, engaged in the performance of Vedic rituals. They had neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared just like an ordinary human being, and asked for some food. They began to condemn themselves as seeing the faith and devotion of their wives. They regretted very much that although their wives were elevated to the platform of a pure devotional service, they themselves could not understand even a little bit of how to love and offer transcendental loving service to our supreme soul. They began to talk among themselves. To hell To hell with our being born Brahmanas, to hell with our learning of all Vedic literatures, to hell with our performing great sacrifices and observing all the rules and regulations, to hell with our family, to hell with our expert service in performing the ritual exactly to the description of the scripture, to hell with it all. For the for we have not developed transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the speculation of the mind, body, and senses. The learned Brahmanas, expert in Vedic rituals, performance were properly regretful because without developing Krishna consciousness, all recharge of the religious duty is simply a waste of time and energy. They continued to talk among themselves. The external energy of Krishna is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we expert Brahmanas are considered to be teachers of all other sanctions of human society, we also have been illused by the external energy. Just see how fortunate these women are who have so devotedly dedicated their lives to Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. They could easily give up their family connection, which is so difficult to do. Family life is just like a dark well for the continuation of material miseries. Women in general, being very simple in heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness, and when they develop the love of Krishna, they can easily get liberation from the clutches of Maya, which is very difficult for even so-called intelligent and learned men to surpass. According to Vedic injunctions, women are not allowed to undergo the purificatory process of initiation by the sacred thread, nor nor are they allowed to live the brahmacharini in the ashrama of the spiritual master. nor are they advised to undergo the strict dis- disciplinary procedure, nor are they very much expert in discussing philosophy or self-realization, and by the nature they are not very pure, nor are they were very much attached to auspicious activities. But how wonderful it is that they have developed transcendental love for Krishna, the Lord of all mystic yoga. The Brahmanas exclaimed, "They have sur- surpassed all of us in firm faith and devotion unto Krishna, being too attached to the materialistic way of life, although we are considered to be master in all purificatory purificatory process. We did not actually know what the goal is, even though we we were reminded of Krishna and Balaram by the covered boy. We disregarded disregarded them. We think now that it was simply a trick of mercy upon us by the Supreme Personality of Godhead that He sent His friend to beg food stuff from us. Otherwise, He had no need to send them. He could have satisfied their hunger then, these just too willing to do so. Wow. If someone denies Krishna's self sufficiency on hearing that he was tending the cow for livelihood, or if someone doubts his not being in need of food stuff, thinking that he was actually hungry, then one should understand that the goddess of fortune is always engaged in his service. In this way, the goddess can break In this way, the goddess can break her faulty habit of restlessness. In Vedic literature, like Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Krishna is served in his adobe with great respect by not only one goddess of fortune, but many thousand. Therefore, it is simply illusion for one to think that Krishna begged food from the Brahmanas. It was actually a trick to show them the mercy of accepting him in pure devotional service. The Vedic ceremonial paraphernalia, the suitable place, suitable time, different grades of articles for performing ritual ceremonies, the Vedic hymns, the priest who is able to perform such sacrifice, the fire and the demigods, the performer of sacrifice, and the religious principle are all meant for understanding Krishna. For Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Supreme Lord Vishnu, the Lord of all mystic yoga, because he has appeared as a child in the dynasty of the Yadus. We were so foolish that we could not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmanas said, but on the other hand, we are very proud because we have such exalted wives who have developed pure tenets of Lord without being shackled by our rigid position. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of Krishna, under whose illusory energy called Maya we are absorbed in fruitive activity. We therefore pray to the Lord to be kind. Scroll Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Did something weird. Can you see now?
Hare Krishna, bro.
Yes.
We therefore pray to the Lord to be kind enough to execute us because we are simply captivated by his external energy. We transgressed his order without knowing his transcendental glories. The Brahmanas repented for their sinful activities. They wanted to go personally to offer their obeisance unto him, but being afraid of Kamsa, they could not go. In other words, it is very difficult for one to surrender fully unto the personality of Godhead without being purified by devotional service. The example of learned Brahmanas and their wives is vivid. The wives of Brahmanas, because they were infused by pure devotional service, did not care for any kind of opposition. They immediately went to Krishna. But although the Brahmanas had come to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead and were repenting, they were still afraid of Kansa because they were too addicted to fruitive activity. Thus, the and Bhakti Vedanta purport of the 23rd chapter of Krishna, delivering the wives of Brahmanas who performed sacrifices. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for giving me
There you
opportunity.
go.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Haribol, we can read one more.
Yes, Prabhu.
Chapter 24, Worshipping Govardhan Hill. Manu Prabhu, you can read this also if you want, or start.
Yes, I my phone died actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so while engaged with the Brahmanas who were too involved in the performance of Vedic, sacrifices, Krishna and Balarama, who also saw that the cowherd men were preparing a similar sacrifice in order to pacify Indra, the king of heaven, who is responsible for supplying water, as stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. A devotee of Krishna has strong and firm faith in the understanding that if he simply engages in Krishna consciousness and Krishna's transcendental loving service, then he is free from all obligations. A pure devotee of Lord Krishna does not have to perform any ritualistic functions enjoined in the Vedas, nor is he required to worship any demigods. Being a devotee of Lord Krishna, one is understood to have performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and all kinds of worship to the demigods. Just by performing the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or worshiping the demigods, one does not develop devotional service for Krishna. Bro? Yes. But one who is engaged fully in the service of the Lord is already finished all Vedic injunctions. Krishna ordered a stop to all such activities by his devotees, for he wanted to firmly establish exclusive devotional service during his presence in Vrindavana. Krishna knew that the cowherd men were preparing for the Indra sacrifice because he is the omniscient personality of Godhead. But as a matter of etiquette, he began to inquire with great honor and submission from the elder personalities like Maharaj Nanda and others. Krishna asked his fathers, "My dear father, what is the arrangement going on for a great sacrifice? What is the result of such sacrifice? For whom is it meant? How is it performed? Will you kindly let me know? I'm very anxious to know this procedure. So please explain to me the purpose of this sacrifice." Upon this inquiry, his father Nanda Maharaj remained silent, thinking that his young boy would not be able to understand the intricacies of performing the yajna. Krishna, however, persisted. My dear father, for those who are liberal and saintly, there's no secrecy. They do not think anyone to be friend or enemy because he is always open to everyone. And even for those who are not so liberal, nothing should be secret for the family members and friends, although secrecy may be maintained for persons who are inimical. Therefore, you cannot keep away secrets from me. All persons are engaged in fruitive activities. Some know that these activities are what these activities are, and they know the result. And some execute activities without knowing the purpose or the result. A person who acts with full knowledge gets the full result. One who acts without knowledge does not get such a perfect result. Therefore, please let me know the purpose of the sacrifice, which you are doing, which you're going to perform. Is it according to the is it according to Vedic injunction, or is it simply a popular ceremony? Kindly let me know in detail about the sacrifice. On hearing the inquiry of Krishna, Nanda Maharaj replied, "My dear boy, this ceremony performance is more or less is more or less traditional, because rainfall is due to the mercy of King Indra, and the clouds are his representatives. And because water is so important, for our living, we must show some gratitude to the controller of this rainfall, Maharaj Indra. We are arranging, therefore, to pacify King Indra, because he has very kindly sent us clouds to pour down sufficient quantity of rain and for successful agricultural activities. Water is very important. Without rainfall, we cannot farm or produce grains. We cannot live if there's no rainfall. It is necessary for successful religious ceremonies, economic development, and ultimately liberation. Therefore, we should not give up the traditional ceremonial function. If one gets it up, if one gives it up, being influenced by lust or greed or fear, then he does not look very good. It does not look very good for him. After hearing this, Krishna, the Supreme Personality, a Godhead in the presence of his father and all the cowherd men of Vrindavana, spoke in such a way to make heavenly King Indra very angry. He suggested that they forego the sacrifice. His reason for discouraging the sacrifice performed to please Indra were twofold. First, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there's no need to worship demigods for any material advancements. All results derived from worshiping the demigods are simply temporary, and only those who are less intelligent are interested in the temporary results. Secondly, whatever temporary results one derives from worshiping the demigods is actually granted by the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Maya Iva Hitan. Whatever benefit is supposed to be derived from the demigods is actually bestowed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot bestow any benefit upon others. But sometimes the demigods become puffed up by the influence of material nature, thinking themselves as all in all. They try to forget the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that in this instance, Krishna wanted to make King Indra angry. Krishna's advent was especially meant for the annihilation of the demons and protection of the devotees. King Indra is certainly a devotee and not demon, but because he is puffed up, Krishna wanted to teach him a lesson. He first tried to make Indra angry by stopping the Indra Puja, which was arranged by the cowherd men in Vrinavana. With this purpose in mind, Krishna began to talk as if he were an atheist, supporting the philosophy of karma mimar, mimamsa. Karma mimamsa advocates this type of philosophy do not accept the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. They put forward the argument that if anyone works nicely, the result is sure to come. Their opinion is that even if there's a God who gives man the result of the fruit of activities, there's no need to worship him because unless man works, he cannot bestow any good results. They say that instead of worshiping demigods or God, people should give attention to their duties, and thus the good results will surely come. Lord Krishna began to speak to his father according to these principles of karma mimamsa philosophy. My dear father, he said, I don't think you need to worship any demigods for successful performances of your agricultural activities. Even living beings is born according to his past karma and leaves his life simply taking the results of his present karma. Everyone is born in different types of species of life according to his past activities, and he gets his next and he gets his next birth according to the activities of this life. Different grades of material happiness and distress, comforts, disadvantages of life are different results of different kinds of activities, either from the past or present life. Maharaj Nanda and other elderly members argued without satisfying the predominating God. One cannot derive any good results simply by material activities. This is actually the fact. For simply, it's sometimes found that in spite of the first class medical help and treatment by a first class physician, a diseased person dies. It is concluded, therefore, that first class medical treatment or the attempts of a first class physicians are not in themselves the cause of curing a patient. There must be a hand of the supreme personality of Godhead. Similarly, a father, a father's and mother's taking care of their children is not the cause of the children's comfort. Sometimes it is found that, in spite of all care by the parents, the children go bad and succumb to death. Therefore, the material causes are not sufficient for results. There must be a sanction of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Nanda Maharaj therefore advocates that in order to get the good results for agricultural activities, they must satisfy Indra, the supreme intending deity of the rain supply. Lord Krishna nullifies this argument, saying that the demigods gives their results only to persons who have executed their prescribed duties. The demigods cannot give any good results to persons who has not executed the prescribed duties. Therefore, demigods are dependent on the execution of duties and are not absolute in awarding good results to anyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My dear father, there is no need to worship the demigod Indra. Lord Krishna said, everyone has to achieve the result of his own work. We can actually see that one becomes busy according to the natural tendency of his work, and according to that natural tendency, all living entities, either human beings or demigods, achieve their respective results. All living entities achieve higher or lower bodies and create enemies, friends, or neutral parties only because of their different kinds of work. One should be careful to discharge duties according to his natural instinct and not divert attention to the worship of various demigods. The demigods will be satisfied by proper execution of all duties, so there is no need to worship them. Let us rather perform our prescribed duties very nicely. Actually, one cannot be happy without executing his proper prescribed duty. One who does not, therefore, properly discharge his prescribed duties is compared with an unchaste woman. The proper prescribed duty of the Brahmanas is the study of the Vedas. The proper duty of the royal order, the Kshatriyas, is engagement in protecting the citizens. The proper duty of the Vaishya community is agriculture, trade, and protection of the cows, and the proper duty of the Shudras is service to the higher classes, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. We belong to the Vaishya community, and our proper duty is to farm or to trade with the agricultural produce, to protect cows or to take banking. Krishna identified himself with the Vaishya community because Nanda Maharaj was protecting many cows and Krishna was taking care of them. He enumerated 4 kinds of business engagements for the Vaishya community, namely agriculture, trade, protection of cows, and banking. Although the Vaishyas can take to any of these occupations, the men of Vrindavan were engaged primarily in the protection of cows. Krishna further explained to his father, this cosmic manifestation is going under the influence of 3 modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. These 3 modes are the causes of creation, maintenance, and destruction. The cloud is caused by the action of the mode of passion. Therefore, it is the mode of passion which causes the rainfall. And after the rainfall, the living entities derive the results, success. The living entities derive the results, success in agricultural work. What then has Indra to do in this affair? Even if you do not please Indra, what can he do? We do not derive any special benefit from Indra. Even if he is there, he pours water on the ocean also, where there is no need of water. So he is pouring water on the ocean or on the land. It does not depend on our worshipping him. As far as we are concerned, we do not need to go to another city or village or foreign country. There are palatial buildings in the cities, but we are satisfied living in this forest of Vrindavan. Our specific relationship is with Govardhan Hill and Vrindavan forest and nothing more. I therefore request you, my dear father, to begin a sacrifice which will satisfy the local Brahmanas and Govardhan Hill, and let us have nothing to do with Indra. After hearing this statement by Krishna, Nanda Maharaj replied, my dear boy, since you are asking, I shall arrange for a separate sacrifice for the local Brahmanas and Govardhan Hill. But for the present, let me execute this sacrifice known as Indra Yagna. But Krishna replied, my dear father, don't delay. The sacrifice you propose for Govardhan and the local Brahmanas will take much time. Better take the arrangement and paraphernalia you have already made for sacrificing Indra Yagna and immediately engage it to satisfy Govardhan Hill and the local Brahmanas. Maharaj Nanda finally relented. The cowherd man then inquired from Krishna how he wanted the yagna performed, and Krishna gave them the following directions. Prepare very nice foodstuff of all descriptions from the grains and ghee collected for the yagna. Prepare rice, dal, then halva, pakora, puri, and all kinds of milk preparations like sweet rice, sweet balls, sandesha, rasgulla, and laddu, and invite the learned Brahmanas who can chant the Vedic hymns and offer oblation to the fire. The Brahmanas should be given all kinds of grace in charity. Then decorate all the cows and feed them well. After performing this, give money in charity to the Brahmanas. As far as the lower animals are concerned, such as the dogs, and the lower grades of people, such as the Chandalas, or the 5th class of man who are considered untouchable, they also may be given sumptuous prasadam. After giving nice grasses to the cows, the sacrifice known as Govardhan Puja may immediately begin. This sacrifice will very much satisfy me. In this statement, Lord Krishna practically described the whole economy of the Vaishya community in all communities of human society and in the animal kingdom among the cows, dogs, goats, etc. Everyone has his part to play. Each is to work in cooperation for total benefit of all society, which includes not only animate objects but also inanimate objects like hills and land. The Vaishya community is specifically responsible for the economic improvement of the society by producing grains, by giving protection to the cows, by transporting food when needed, and by banking and finance. For this statement, we learn also that the cats and dogs, although not so important, are not to be neglected. Cow protection is actually more important than protection of cats and dogs. Another hint we can get from this statement is that the chandalas or the untouchables are also not to be neglected by the higher classes. Everyone is important, but some are directly responsible for the advancement of human society, and some are only indirectly responsible. However, when Krishna consciousness is there, then everyone's total benefit is taken care of. The sacrifice known as Govardhan Puja is observed in the Krishna consciousness movement. Lord Chaitanya has recommended that since Krishna is worshipable, so his land, Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill are also worshipable. To confirm this statement, Lord Krishna said that Govardhan Puja is as good as worship of him. From that day, the Govardhan Puja has been still going on and is known as Annakuta. In all the temples of Vrindavan or outside of Vrindavan, huge quantities of food are prepared in this ceremony and are very sumptuously distributed to the general population. Sometimes the food is thrown to the crowds and then they enjoy collecting it off the ground. From these instances, we can understand that prasadam offered to Krishna never becomes polluted or contaminated, even if it's thrown on the ground. The people therefore collect it and eat it with great satisfaction. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, therefore advised the cowherd man to stop the Indra Yagna and begin the Govardhan Puja in order to chastise Indra, who was very much puffed up at being the supreme controller of the heavenly planets. The honest and simple cowherd man, headed by Nanda Maharaj, accepted Krishna's proposal and executed in detail everything he advised. They performed Govardhan worship and circumambulation of the hill. Following the inauguration of the Govardhan Puja, people in Vrindavan still dress nicely and assemble near Govardhan Hill to offer worship and circumambulate the hill, leading their cows all around. According to the instruction of Lord Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd man called in learned Brahmanas and began to worship Govardhan Hill by chanting Vedic hymns and offering prasadam. The inhabitants of Vrindavan assembled together, decorated with their cows, and gave them grass. Keeping the cows in front, they began to circumambulate Govardhan Hill. The gopis also dressed themselves very luxuriantly and sat in the bull-driven carts, chanting the glories of Krishna's pastimes. Assembled there to act as priests for Govardhan Puja, the Brahmanas offered their blessings to the cowherd man and their wives, the gopis. When everything was complete, Krishna assumed a great transcendental form and declared to the inhabitants of Vrindavan that he was himself Govardhan Hill, in order to convince the devotees that Govardhan Hill and Krishna himself are identical. Then Krishna began to eat all the food offered there. The identity of Krishna and Govardhan Hill is still honored, and great devotees take rocks from Govardhan Hill and worship them exactly as they worship the deity of Krishna in the temples. Devotees therefore collect small rocks or pebbles from Govardhan Hill and worship them at home, because this worship is as good as deity worship. The form of Krishna who began to eat the offerings was separately constituted, and Krishna himself, along with other inhabitants of Vrindavan, began to offer obeisances to the deity as well as Govardhan Hill. In offering obeisances to the huge form of Krishna himself and Govardhan Hill, Krishna declared, Krishna is offering obeisances unto himself, his huge form. Just see how Govardhan Hill has assumed this huge form and is favoring us by accepting all the offerings. Krishna also declared at that meeting, one who neglects the worship of Govardhan Puja, as I am personally conducting it, will not be happy. There are many snakes on Govardhan Hill, and persons neglecting the prescribed duty of Govardhan Puja will be bitten by the snakes and killed. In order, In order to assure the good fortune of the cows and themselves, all people of Vrindavan near Govardhan must worship the hill as prescribed by me. Thus, performing the Govardhan Puja sacrifice, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan followed the instruction of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and afterwards they returned to their respective homes. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 24th chapter of Krishna, worshipping Govardhan hill. Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Okay, next time, tomorrow we will read about the rainfall when Indra gets really angry.
Wow. Wow.
Hari Bol. One second. Who is this? Okay, now let's read six Astakam prayers. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagninirvapanam shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadujivanam anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamritasvadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Nam Nam Kari Bahudan Nitasava Sakti Takta Pitani Amatatmane Nakala Gitati Shita Vakipa Bhagavama Mapi Deva Mitri Samiha Janinanu Ragaha.
त्रिनाद अपि सुनिचन तरोर अपि सहिष्णुना अमाननीयमानदेन कीर्तन्य सदा हरि
Nadanam न जनम न सुंदरीं कवितां वा जगदीशकामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतात् भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि.
अयि नंद तनोजा किं करम पतितां माम विस्मय भवम बंदो कृपया तव पाद पंकजा स्थित धूलि सदृश विचिन्तया
Nayanam Galad Ashudarya Vatanam Katkararuta Kriya Pulakya Nititama Pukata Tavanamakarhe Bhavishyati.
युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्राविर्शायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे.
अश्लिष्य अश्लिष्य वा पदरतं विनास्तो माम अद्रसनान् मम हतं करोतौ वा यथा तथा वा विधातु लम्पतो मत्प्राणनाथास्तु तु सा एव नप्रः
Ribo.
Yo.
Okay, translation. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
Oh
Oh
my
my
Lord.
Lord, Your Holy. Oh no, sorry.
Yes, Prabhu,
I like
continue,
to hear,
please. Sorry.
no, I like to hear your voice, Prabhu. Don't deprive me of your voice.
Okay, Prabhu. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In this transcendental name, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rule for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in the humble state of mind. Thinking oneself large in a straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with the sorry, bro. Uh, O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atom at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separations, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or make me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything for he is always my worshipable God unconditionally.
हरि बोल श्री शिक्षाष्टकम की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन
Jai.
की जय पंचतत्व की
Jai.
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
Jai.
महाप्रभु की जय प्रभु नित्यानंद
Jai.
की जय
Jai.
जगत गुरु भक्त
Jai.
स्वामी श्री प्रभात की जय
Jai.
और प्रेमानंदे हरि
Hari
हरि
Hari Bol.